So, hello everyone. Yeah, this will be kind of a new type of video that I think you have never seen on YouTube. It's called a tier list. I invented that myself. This time we are ranking the unmatched fighters on how much I like them. So, first disclaimer, this is completely objective. This is the definite tier list. If I say I don't like a character, you also shouldn't like the character. Um, if I like a character and you don't like it, fuck off. Nah. But yeah, we'll just jump right into it. We have five tiers here. Um, Up above, we have love those. I will always play as against however with these fighters because they're just, I love them. A lot of fun, just kind of explains itself. Nice as well. Well, if I have to, due to tournament, them being just so good, and yeah, then I'll play them. And pay me or no are just the fighters that I rebel to play as. I will basically never pick them. Um, and yeah, only have to play against them in tournaments, but otherwise I would also say no most of the time. So yeah, no direct order here. Well, I'll just go from left to right, and yeah, we'll see. Uh, Deadpool is the only fighter I have not played as or against, so I will exclude him. The rest will be on this ranking, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. First, we have the king himself, King Arthur. Um, I think for me he will go in the, well, if I have to tier, because he just kinda sucks. I don't like losing, and I don't like not being able to play the character itself, because getting your ability cancelled just feels so bad as Arthur. Not getting Excalibur early feels so bad as Arthur, and even if you get it, not getting Lady of the Lake feels just the same. And it's like he can have some fun games. I can see why people still like him, but I'd rather play anyone else probably than except the pay me characters. Um, Next up, we have Dracula. Dracula will, for me, go in the love those because I think just his whole game plan of trying to chip your opponent down and setting up those lethal beast forms it's just so much fun for me thinking about how you could do that best because you have pretty bad blocks. You basically only have many bodies on the board to protect yourself and then finding those beast form lethals and do my bidding shenanigans. I think it's just extremely fun to play as or against a Dracula. And yeah, always. Next up, we have Jekyll and Hyde. Jekyll and Hyde will probably also go in the well if I have to category for a similar reason as Arthur. Um, since you're just able to play half your deck most of the time, I think it's just lessens the fun factor most of the time. If you're playing as Jekyll and Hyde, sure you can have a 27 value Forever Hyde. You could, and then that would feel holy crow. But yeah, otherwise so inconsistent and like I want to know what I get into when playing a deck, and with Jekyll and Hyde, it's just kind of, huh, either I get lucky with the draw or I don't, and then it's just kind of sucks. So yeah. Next up, we have Mr. Invisible Man. I think he will go in the nice category for me because I don't think he has any of these crucial flaws that Arthur and Jekyll Hyde have that makes him unfun. It's just like his deck is not the most offensive. Um, He runs away a lot, plays his schemes, goes for fatigue because he usually needs that because he doesn't have many high value attacks. But it's still kind of fun to navigate him, navigate the fog tokens, and kind of see how you can get your damage in with your schemes optimally, how you can chip your opponent down. Sure, in most matchups it won't be enough, but if you find some rare good IM stuff, then it's fun. Definitely nice to have. Next up, we have Sherlock. Yeah, I think that's a clear one. Sherlock is probably one of the most boring characters in all of Unmatched. You just run away the whole game, maybe attack twice, three times, depending on the matchup. And then that's enough because your opponent just dies from scheme damage or even fatigue because you technically have, what is it, 8 passes, 9? And yeah, it's just ridiculous. I don't know. I think Sherlock's probably one of the most frustrating characters to play as or against because you just take no damage. You don't actually interact with your opponent much. You destroy their hand size and get rid of their best cards that would actually be fun. And yeah, nah, just don't like Sherlock. Next up, we have Buffy. Buffy for me will actually go in the a lot of fun tier. Choosing a sidekick is one of the more interesting abilities that I've seen throughout the sets of Unmatched, and I'm kind of sad we didn't see that in any other deck yet. Um, just being able to switch between Giles and Sander um, depending on the matchup is really interesting. Either you get a bunch of schemes with draw and inside, or you just go for more raw attacking power with Xander with some 4s and 6s, and just feels great. Also, being able to move through opponents is a great ability if you are up against someone with 1 health sidekicks that usually you feel really bad against because you'll have to get rid of them first before you can actually play the game. But Buffy just ignores that, and that's a lot of fun. And I think Buffy is just great character. I really like her. Wish she was a bit stronger, but yeah, still great. Next up, we have Angel. Um, Angel is actually a hard one for me because, like, I don't dislike him, but he is probably one of, if not the worst character next to Spike. So his game plan just doesn't work most of the time, so you don't really get to play really because your opponent will just run away or even just hit over your low and bad blocks. Faith is kind of she's there and then she dies turn one. It's kind of sidekick, at least from my experience. So I don't know. I think he can be fun if played against also lower tier fighters like Buffy, Spike. I think then he's actually a lot of fun, but otherwise it will just be probably a frustrating experience every time. And so for me, I think I'll put him in the nice tier because like if we play at home with some friends and we say, yeah, we'll only go for low mid tier and below characters, and someone manages to get out a good angel pick, and then it's just really cool. But yeah, Spike. Yeah, Spike will sadly go pay me or no, because with Spike, I would kind of feel similar with Spike as with Angel, because against low tiers he can sometimes work, but that's a big can sometimes, because at least Angel kinda works with his cards. He can use his cards as they were intended to most of the time. Spike can't, because your opponent will just run away. You don't have any passes. You don't have any way to spread your shadow tokens more than adjacent to you, so they just have to run away, and you can't use 99% of your cards, and that sucks. So if you can't use your cards, then you can't really play the game as you would want to, and then it feels frustrating. So sadly, Spike will go as low as this, just on a Sherlock tier, because I think they're actually kinda the same from fun factor. Sherlock denies you from playing the game. Spike does as well. but just in different manners. And yeah, Willow. Um, I think Willow will also go in a lot of fun for me. Um, it's kind of like just like the reason with Angel. If you play against low tier fighters, I think Willow is just really cool. Blind boosting, I think, is just a fun mechanic. Switching forms and having actually resurrection, even in 2v2s, that can be great. Um, so I think that's why I would put her a bit even above Angel. Because, like, yeah, if you play seriously against anyone else, yeah, she sucks and you'll have a miserable time. But since this is not a competitive tier list, but just how much I like them in all of Unmatched and all of the variants that there are, I think she'll go there. I actually really like her. Yeah, next up, I don't think that's a surprise for anyone. Little Red, my favorite fighter in all of Unmatched. No one has beaten her yet, from how much I like her. Just playing this kind of mini game with these symbols in the game itself, it's just so much fun for me. Thinking about how to outmind game your opponent, and even if you're playing against her, thinking about what would be the optimal play to mess with her symbols and then kind of play around that. And it's just so much fun. I love Red, and yeah, if you don't love Red, you are a bad person. Yeah. Next up, we have Beowulf. Um, Beowulf is actually hard because I don't have any strong feelings towards him at all. Like, for me, he's kind of there, and that's it. Like, there's nothing I find really interesting about him. His rage is just meh. If you have it and are able to spend it, you basically almost always do it. So it's not like with someone like Tesla where you actually think about, yeah, do I want to spend the coils or not? Is it worth it? With Bayo, if you have the rage and you could spend it, you basically always do it. So I think that's just a bit of a missed opportunity. Also, not being able to control the draw on Fatal Struggle sometimes can feel bad. And yeah, I think he'll just go in well if I have to. There's not much I really like about him. He's just, mm, I don't know. Like I said, I don't have any strong female feelings about him. Alice, however, will go into love those. Um, I love smacking big numbers, and Alice probably has some of the biggest numbers we have yet seen. If you just stay big throughout the whole game, which you can do sometimes, and just smack for 9, 7, 7, 8, 7, whatever, it's juicy. Um, Also, managing your size changes, I find that pretty interesting. Knowing when to play which card, and Jabberwock, great sidekick. I just love Alice. I don't know. It's probably one of the characters that it I can see why for some people it could be frustrating playing her or against her, um, because she can get stuck with only a size change hand, and then you get forced to do stuff you don't want. But I think that actually just makes her a bit more fun because there's so much counterplay and it's really interesting if whenever you face up against Alice. And yeah, I just like her. Well, that will be some interesting stuff now because someone might say, huh, but you just said you like managing size changes and the counterplay stuff. Yeah, but why don't you like Achilles? I don't know. That's probably the one fighter where I don't know why I hate him, but I just hate him so much. On paper, Achilles should be really appealing to me and really fun. Thinking about when Pat should die, kind of playing around that with your opponent. You both have a game plan when he should die, and then it just kind of goes his way. But I just find Achilles so incredibly boring. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Um, I think I just don't get the real grip of him, to be honest. I've tried him a lot. Achilles is one of the favorite fighters from or one of my friends, so I play as and against him a lot. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I don't like him because I've played him so often that it kind of gets dull a bit, but I don't know, I just fucking hate him. And yeah, that's my reason. Like I said, definite tier list. Objective. Yeah, Mary. Mm, Mary will go into the nice tier for me. Um, I really like the theme with all the threes, move three. You have three cards in hand for three actions and stuff. It's really thematic. Um, it's also pretty fun to play against a Mary to think about, yeah, how can you mess with her hand size best as possible. Like if she's at four cards, you probably don't want to attack her, so she doesn't get down to three. If she's at three, you probably want to attack her, but then she may draw from her after combat effect, and then you're still kind of fucked because then she still has three cards. You just lost one of yours. She has three actions and might overrun you. So you maybe just want to run away to get as much distance between you and her. So she maybe spends two actions maneuvering and you just feint the last one, but then she could play her print 4 into your feint, and then you feel bad. And I just think it's really interesting to play against Mary, just not as much playing as her, in my opinion, because I think your opponent has just a bit too much control over your hand size and can mess with that a bit too much for you to actually make it work all of the time. And even if you get those juicy fours into a feint on third action, yeah, that might be the only third action turn you really get outside of your two closers. So you don't really get to use those big junky attacks that you would have thrown otherwise. So they're just kind of dead cards from now on. So I think playing against a Mary is really, really fun. Playing as her can be nice, but can also be kind of frustrating. That's why she is just in the middle there. Now, some people might hate me for this, but Wukong will go into a lot of fun. Just like how I love mind games on Little Red or even Mary with third action, I am one of the persons that just laughs every time when I play Wukong with Jingabong or Oxfong. I know it can be extremely frustrating. You just punch against clones all the time and don't really deal damage to him, or you get smacked with the ox in the face, or you defend against Jingabong and then there comes the second one, you don't have any defense left, and yada yada yada. I know it can be frustrating, but I think especially like in the last couple of sets, there are so many fighters that can deal with that a bit more that Wukong often just plays an honest game right now, and that just makes him even more fun for me because then I can actually play Unmatched normally and still have those funny interactions. And yeah, I kind of always liked Wukong. He was the first fighter I played as, so maybe that's a bit of bias there. But yeah, I just like him. Next up, we have Yennenga. She will go next to Wukong in a lot of fun. I think she's just so versatile. You can almost handle every single matchup in some kind of way if you're skilled enough. You have so many options in your deck, so many great cards. It's positioning heavy. I love positioning, and yeah, Yen is really fun. She's just not a one of my tops because she like doesn't excel in anything really. She's just good in everything, kind of, and that's why she's also kind of fun. But I like to have like some major stuff you want to do throughout the game, like with Alice being big and smacking hard, Red lining up your symbols, Drag getting those juicy beasts from lethals. Yen is just she's just decent, and that's also what I like about her versatility. But yeah, just not the best of the best for me. Next up, we have Ghost Rider. Um, I think Ghost Rider will go in the well if I have to, because I think Ghost Rider is just a bit too linear to play from my kind of view. You just room through your opponent most of the time, maybe attack with your fives and pennants, and then that's kind of it. Yeah, sure, you also have this kind of finishing move with Blaze, but Blaze can be feinted and then you just feel bad, or they could play a movement effect and you feel bad. It's not like Beast Form where you know if your opponent has four or less health, basically, and if you have X amount of cards, you are guaranteed to kill them. Because if they faint, they take 4. If they don't, you can junk your hand into it, and yeah, they still take 4. Ghost Rider is just like you always chip once, you don't really engage in combat that often. Just not my type of play style. Um, I can still see why people like him, but it's just not for me. Next up we have Luke. Um, I think Luke will go nice for me. Luke is he's just decent. I kinda like him. He has big values. He smacks hard. He has good defenses. He has Misty, who's cool sidekick, probably one of the strongest actually. And playing against a Luke is also kind of fun. Sometimes, like, there are not many mind games that he can throw, so your playstyle against Luke tends to be a bit linear, but you still have the still standing problem that you have to think about. Once he played the first one, when will he play the second one? Because you want to cancel that or max value block. So there are some neat interactions, and I just think Luke is a pretty honest fighter. Sure, trash talk can be annoying sometimes if it just ends your turn, but I think you can also play around that and maybe catch him by surprise because he thought, yeah, trash talk will end the turn, but then hey, you smack with something like a block over it, and then you still have another action, and maybe he didn't plan for that. And yeah, the only frustrating part about Luke, if you play him yourself, can be that you can be stuck with a handful of blues or full of reds, because his ability just doesn't allow for many versatiles, because that would just be too strong. So yeah, it can sometimes be frustrating, but I just overall enjoy Luke. Next up, we have Moon Knight. Moon Knight will go in a lot of fun for me. Um, Reason being, changing forms, managing your turns optimally to get that juicy control turn with maybe a double attack with +2. It just feels really good. At the start, I didn't really like Moon Knight. He was a bit too complicated for me, and just felt actually bad because I wasn't able to manage him that great. But ever since I played him more often, seen other people play him, I kind of got the hang of it, and then now I really like him. He's just so much fun to navigate as and against, taking your best opportunities to attack as him or against him to pressure him down, kind of get him to not get good contra turns, or you as Moon Knight trying to get the best contra turns, and yada yada yada. I just think Moon Knight is just a fun fighter. Oops, and I closed the tier list there. Uh, no one saw that. Next up, we have Daredevil. Probably the tier list was afraid of Daredevil because many people don't like him. Yeah, but I do. Um, Daredevil is also probably one of my favorites. He's grown on me so much. Like managing your discard pile with the Devils, deciding on what playstyle you want to do with a blind boosting stuff. Maybe you want to go aggro and just blind boost every single time to also get some pressure on your opponent, will them down, or just run away a bit and then you have to know your timings when to go for the devil against who to go for the devil because maybe their psychic can't feint or whatever. I think Daredevil is just extremely interesting to play as and against every single time. And yeah, I just really, really like him. Yeah, I think this is not a debate. Elektra's so degenerate. It's so boring to play as or against her. Because in most games you just run away and automatically win because you just don't die. You have basically a 40 card deck and two discards, and Snake Root is the dumbest defense in the game. I just fucking hate her. Um, yeah. There are some matchups like maybe She-Hulk, maybe Houdini, Luke that can be fun, but the rest is just you won't have fun playing as or against Elektra, trust me. Medusa. Um, I think Medusa has grown on me a lot since I first played her because I started playing Unmatched like half a year ago, And at that point, there weren't so many good options against Medusa, or maybe they weren't just figured out that at that time. So she was also one of these indestructible forces up there who could just discard you 6 cards and then finish with a Gaze at the end. And one ping felt bad, but I think with time there have been many more interesting matchups against her. Um, like Tesla, Tomoe, and many others. I think she's actually grown on me to the part that I think I actually quite like her. It's not that I would just, if I have to play someone who I just like, just pick Medusa. I don't think that will ever happen, but I'm not as much biased against her as I am with Sherlock and Electra, for example, because I still feel like Medusa kinda plays an honest game most of the time, because the discard is not random, it's choice, and yeah, you can discard something like regroup and stuff. And then she's basically just a normal fighter. Doesn't have the best defenses. Sure, she has 5 passes, but then she also doesn't draw any cards on that turn, so you can maybe pressure her down or anything else. I just think it's actually fun playing against Medusa right now, and also as her. So yeah, nothing to complain there. Next up, we have Bullseye. Where to build Bullseye? I think Bullseye will go in nice. Um, Bullseye is obviously one of the most aggressive fighters in the game. Um, and that's kinda his biggest strength, what I like about him, and also his biggest weakness, what I don't like about him. Because if you draw your schemes, Bullseye is hella fun. You just attack twice almost every turn, can keep up the draw, and just will your opponent down with your big attacks, winning combat, and your shenanigans that you have. But if you don't draw your schemes, well, you'll just run out of gas, and since you only can defend for 3 max and don't have any healing as a 14 health fighter, if you don't ca- if you can't keep up the aggression with your schemes, then you'll just get run over by your opponent most of the time because they'll just smack too hard, so you will have to run away, and then you don't really get to counterattack anymore, and just feels bad. Um, so I think I'll have to bump him down even one more. Like, sure, most Bullseye games, they they can be a lot of fun, but just the concept of relying on 2 cards in your deck for having fun is, I just don't really like that concept for me. But yeah. Next up, we have Dr. Sadler. That's an easy one for me because I think Dr. Sadler is one of the most boring fighters to play as. You don't have anything to do as Settler, you just run around and attack, run around and attack. And it's a lot like with someone like Sinbad, where you get some fancy stuff by running around and attacking. You just have your inside tokens that you can either use for getting 7 value attack or 7 value defense, basically. That's all the option you have. And that's kind of boring, to be honest. Sure, Malcolm is a cool sidekick. You have many one-off cards that kind of thematic for the movies, but I just don't get the hang of it, and I just don't really like playing her. She's a bit too boring for me, and yeah. However, one might say Settler is boring, but T-Rex is boring as well because you just maneuver and attack every single turn and then attack again and attack again and attack again. But yeah, with T-Rex it's oops, not Houdini. With T-Rex it's actually way more fun for me because as T-Rex you're not with Settler just maneuver and attack, and you basically don't have much options with Sattler. With Rex, you have so many options. You are probably one of, if not the most aggressive fighter in the game. 27 starting health, you damage yourself with your cards, but you just don't care because you have so much health. You burn your opponent down and are so aggressive with the draw at the end. It's incredibly fun. And also playing against T-Rex, in my opinion, is really fun. Knowing when to actually counter-attack her, pressure her hand size, so she maybe has to take a double maneuver turn, so that she runs through her deck even faster and then gets the fatigue, so you might even outlast her. And just knowing that kind of opportunity when you have the time, I think it's really fun. Maybe I'm one of the only ones there, maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, Houdini. Houdini is a double-edged sword for me because playing as Houdini is probably one of the most fun things you can do. You can maneuver boost and warp around the map, have your fancy effects go off, and then rip a card of your opponent's hand and smack them for a 9 value pick reveal. Whatever. But it can also just be as frustrating if you're playing against a Houdini. Him maneuver boosting and reaching you wherever you are, ripping your best defense out of hand and just smacking you. It feels really bad. Not much you can do about it at all with positioning. Like, yeah, there's stuff like Baskervilles and Solomons where you can hide one of your fighters if you still have a second body, but those are like the exceptions. Otherwise, you can't really do anything regarding to positioning against Houdini. He'll just warp and smack you whenever he wants, and then maybe rip your best card out of hand, and you're just dead. That just feels bad, actually. Uh, but same if you do that as Houdini, it just feels really cool. So yeah, he'll just go in the nice, kind of double-edged sword. But yeah. Next up, we have the genie. Hmm, Genie will go in a lot of fun for me. Because Genie's deck sucks. It extremely sucks. Except for wishes. Three wishes, how you use them, that just makes or breaks you the game. If you can discard your opponent's hand completely and then OTK them, it's extremely rewarding. And also playing against Genie, thinking about, do I want to attack him now to maybe pressure his hand size so he might not have the wishes turn, or make him use one of the wishes to draw so it's less discard, or do I want to run away and be a bit more safe, get more defense in hand? Yada yada. It just feels really cool to play as or against Genie because you know what his big thing is, and you can plan and play around that. Doesn't mean you can really prevent it, even like if you have chosen this card, yeah, sure, you can. But otherwise, I just think Genie is probably one of the hardest fighters to play, and I really like that. He has so many options, so many micro decisions he can do throughout a game, and just optimizing that one wishes turn is extremely interesting for me. Next up, we have Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel would go in nice. I don't have many strong feelings about her. She's just kind of fun, thinking about, yeah, which zones I'm in, how many zones I'm in, and stuff, playing around that a bit. Um, Feels fun to play as her. She doesn't have any like game-breaking mechanics. She just kind of plays an aggressive game, and that's it. She, like not much I can say about her. Mm, Playing against her is also kind of fun because you can mess with the zoning and yeah. The only thing I would maybe address with her is she's really map dependent. Like if you're playing on something like Raptor Paddock, yeah, you have a great time with Miss Marvel. But if you're playing on a bad map for her, then oof, that can be frustrating because you don't really get any of your card effects off, and then yeah, it just feels bad. Actually, just because of that reason, just like with Bullseye, I'll bump her down one. Mm, doesn't mean I don't like her. It's just if you play her on something like Raptor Paddock, I can definitely see her jumping up one or maybe two tiers. But because that's so dependent and you're probably being able to mess around these zones so much, kinda makes her a bit less fun for me. Cloak and Dagger. Mm, I think Cloak and Dagger will go in nice for me. Um, as Cloak and Dagger, thinking about which of your fighters is like more important for you in a certain game stage, how you want to manage their HP with Chosen Fate is really fun. Thinking about how to get a good combo turn, milling their hand down with Cloak at the start, and then maybe popping up with Dagger. It's really cool. However, it can be frustrating because they only have 8 health each and like not the best blocks that your opponent could kill one of them early and then kinda yeah, half of your deck is dead. Well, not dead in the case of Jekyll and Hyde, you just can't play the cards, but dead in the way that you can just use the cards for one purpose and that's it. So your opponent will just know what you're doing, you become really linear. So that can be a problem. However, if playing against them, I also find it interesting to think about who am I worried about more, who do I want to focus in which situation, and how do I play around her cards and not get OTK'd by Dagger. So yeah, I think they are actually a lot of fun, also with the recent ruling changes, um, making their cards a bit more strong than they were before. I think that's, I think they're just a cool fighter. Next up, we have Squirrel Girl. Okay, so some of you might know that Squirrel Girl was one of my mains before I really started playing Unmatched as competitive as I'm now. But it's just I just find it so incredibly funny beating Bigfoot with squirrels. It's just so fucking hilarious. Even if that's extremely unlikely, likely, I just find it so much fun to play her if I'm like not playing competitively. Because if I am doing it, yeah, she only has boost 2 max, so she is a move 4 melee, and you just can't do anything on most maps, which really sucks. But like if I'm playing just with friends and have a great time, yeah, the flavor text on her cards with the dumb jokes, it's hilarious. That's just my kind of humor, and I love it. So I'll put her in love those. Although if I have to actually play her competitive, yeah, just saying. So that's probably it's just funny with her. Black Panther. Absolutely hate this guy. Absolutely. Stealing cards from your opponent's deck. It's the worst mechanic they've ever come up with. It's so incredibly frustrating. Like getting your beast form stolen from Black Panther, you just auto lose the game, and it's just by pure chance. Like there's nothing fun about him. Like not at all. I just fucking despise him. Like playing as him or playing against him. Because if I'm playing as him and I steal some great card that my opponent needed, well, I know they're feeling really bad, and I also feel really bad for them because I want to play a proper game of Unmatched and not just automatically win by chance. But like, he's just, he's the worst. Probably my most hated fighter right now. I just fucking despise him so much. It's not like with someone like Sherlock where you actually play a bit and can do something, but it's just kind of sucks and you're bored. With him, you're just frustrated. You just want to stop playing, actually, in my opinion. Yeah, Black Panther. Just ugh. Next up, we have Black Widow. Well, I guess King and Country has some wide spans between how much I like the characters. Um, Widow and her missions are also probably one of the most fun I've had in Unmatched. Since my main is Little Red, she's my favorite. Playing that mini game with the symbols, I instantly knew once Widow was out, I would absolutely love her because she also kind of has a mini game with her missions. You and your opponent both know kind of what your objectives are throughout the game. And you play around that with positioning, with if you want to attack her, if she has low hand size, to maybe not run into a Budapest or whatever. It's just insanely fun. And since she's also really hard to play, knowing which missions to recur with Maria and positioning aspects and whatever, I just discover many new tactics every single time I play her, and it's just extremely fun. I love playing as and against her, and yeah, probably will jump up even higher in my own personal rankings, maybe even to number two. But yeah, I just fucking love her. Next up, we have the man himself, old boy Sinbad. Now, Sinbad for me is just nice. He's probably one of the most basic fighters in all of Unmatched. He maneuvers and attacks you every single turn, but ramping up your movement and moving across the whole board, it just it's just fun, to be honest. I can't say it any other way. It's just fun reaching your opponent every single time and attacking them. Also, you have the mind game with Voyage or Commanding Impact, which kind of adds a bit of more stuff to his deck than there would appear first. So yeah, I just think Sinbad is cool. I don't think how you can dislike Sinbad, but I can't understand it. He's just cool. Next up, we have Winter Soldier. Well, I've just recently made a guide for that guy, and at the start, I didn't really connect to him. He just felt a bit boring because I thought he would just run away the whole game and then just reshuffle, and that's it. But actually, there's way more about him than that. You have to think about when to be aggressive, when not to, because if you just run away and don't counterattack your opponent, yeah, they'll just find the damage to kill you. That's just a fact, because your draw can suck, your blocks can suck, you have low health, unreliable healing, so you kind of have to find a way to play around that and also counterattack, pressure your opponent, and make them worry as well. So I think he's jumped up a lot for me, although I should say that his draw can be so incredibly inconsistent that in some games you will, in most games, you'll probably have a lot of fun playing as him, even though you might not win because it's still really hard to navigate him. But there can also be some ways where you just draw the most utter dog shit you've ever seen, and then you just instantly lose. Turn two. Can happen, but I still really like him, even though he's probably also one of the hardest fighters, and I don't really win that often with him, but it's just fun playing as or against him, and yeah, I like him. Next up, the fatigue god himself. Yeah, Strange is not cool. Um, but I may say here, sure, Strange is probably one of the most frustrating fighters to play as or against in competitive, because he'll just run away the whole game, recur his cards that he really wants, maybe ignoring your value if you're a melee fighter with cloak, or just fucking having 4 super passes, so basically 8 passes in the deck. And it's just extremely frustrating to play. But I may say, if we play just in our friend group and we don't take it so serious, so Strange actually plays normal, if that makes sense, blind boosts a bit, just takes the risks and chances, then I think he's there. But because I'm kind of traumatized of the game I just saw between that Phantom streamed with Strange against She-Hulk on Yukon, I think I will still have to put him here. Although, just like I said, if you're playing with your friends and you don't take the game as serious, I think Strange can still be a lot of fun. Next up, She-Hulk. Um, I think She-Hulk will go in the well if I have to tier. Mm, I don't really like her playstyle. To be honest, you play for fatigue almost every single time you want to make your opponent approach, and then you have Lady Justice, which is also a really stupid defense card, although there is counterplay with offensive feint. But like if your opponent offensive feints that, that's one less feint that they could throw into your 9. So yeah, I think you're fine. Um, Otherwise, Lady Justice, bleh, card milling from your opponent's deck. Just as I don't like it with Panther, I don't like it with She-Hulk. Um, Otherwise, yeah, you have basically four main ways to get to your opponent with your schemes, and then that's kind of it. Once you run out of those, your opponent can also just run away if you are not high up in fatigue. So I think playing as She-Hulk or against her can be just really frustrating. If you play against her and you don't have some fatigue maniac, yeah, you'll just have to approach her every single time, run into Lady Justice. She'll throw stuff at you for free auto damage, get her nasty random discards and recursion of those and whatever, and it feels bad. And if you play as She-Hulk, yeah, and you have to face some fatigue maniac, yeah, then you'll be the one to approach. You can attack 4 times a game, they will defend, and then you can't do anything. That's She-Hulk for you. I just find she's extremely boring. Bruce Lee. I think Bruce will go in nice for me. Um, he has probably some of the most hilarious cards in the game, to be honest, with wah and stuff. Be like water, whatever. I think he's just a ton of fun to play as. Also, his ability is really fun with hopping at the end of turn. But I think it can be frustrating sometimes because you only have 14 HP as a melee fighter, so you can just take so much damage that you don't really get your Jeet combos off, and you may have to play water suboptimally and stuff. He just has he just has basically an honest game. There's not much to complain about him. I think he's kind of compared to Sinbad. He does that one thing that he excels in really well, but like if you don't get to do that, you don't get to do that, and that's it. But yeah, otherwise, Bruce, just fun. Robin Hood. Now this will be a hard one because like I kinda like Robin, but also kinda not. Um, I really like him being this hyper aggressive fighter that just attacks every single turn and can hop back to safety, mill your opponent down from hand size, and yeah, maybe hit some undefended hits. The might game between highway robbery and Wiley is still great, and maybe ambush. So yeah, not much to complain there. Just playing against him can sometimes be a bit frustrating because highway robbery you can't really do much about it except if you faint. Um, and like him hopping always behind his outlaws means you almost always have to kill them first, and if you're like a fighter that doesn't deal with one of psychics as well, I think that can suck a bit, but overall, think I'll still put Robin in a lot of fun. Now, Bigfoot. Might be some unpopular opinions here, but yeah, I also absolutely despise playing Bigfoot or against Bigfoot. Um, he has so high values, so way too strong cards that 5 cancels on itself is annoying as hell. Um, then 6 4 value blocks on top of that, those are ridiculous blocks. He doesn't really take much damage, but in return he can smack you for 3 locks. Savagery, shifts, Jackalope is one of the best sidekicks. You don't really kill him at all, and then he plays 6 auto damage on you. Then Bigfoot can also play a nasty fatigue game with 5 passes, and there's so there are not many fighters that can actually do something about him. Yeah, sure, if you're playing as him, it's kinda interesting when to use his ability, but I think that's also kinda it. Otherwise, you'll just smack your opponent and then win. That's just at least how I feel when playing Bigfoot. I just feel he's super annoying, super boring, and I just don't like him. Next up, Injun. Injun will go in nice for me. Injun has kind of the Robin problem where you kind of want to be aggressive sometimes, but you have so many one health sidekick that it's really frustrating for your opponent to actually get to you. Traps even enhance that because denying your opponent the movement, even worse ways to get to Muldoon himself, can be frustrating. Although I think playing as Injun, thinking about the positioning of the traps, when to actually play them, if you want to play them, because in the long game they kinda are bad for you in terms of fatigue. I think that's actually pretty interesting. Um, just maybe a bit too frustrating sometimes against some characters, like just typical melee fighters, like actually Bigfoot. But yeah, Sinbad maybe. I think that can be a bit too frustrating. But yeah, otherwise, I like navigating Injun or thinking about how to play against him because Injun can also be really aggressive, play a good fatigue game, much positioning. I just think he's Muldoon is cool, but just a bit too harsh against some characters to actually get him a lot higher. Um, Raptors. Raptors for me will go in. Mm, I think they'll also go in nice. I think there's not much you could not like about Raptors. They are hella aggressive, can OTK you really easily if you don't have the right defenses. But if they mess up and you kind of survive their good turns, then you can maybe counter pressure them, kill one off because their blocks suck. They don't only have 10 blocks. Um, so you can kill probably one of them pretty easily if you don't get pressured too much. And I just think they're pretty fun to play as and against. There's obvious counterplay. They play an honest game and not much to complain about Raptors. Now Spider-Man, it pains me a bit, but I'll probably have to put him in well if I have to. Spider-Man is just kind of the ability on paper sounded cool at the start, but if you really play him more and kind of get to know the fighters, then the ability kind of becomes obsolete because you probably know what your opponent is attacking with most of the time, or at least you know what would be the optimal attack for them, so you can plan around that. And if it should not be the optimal way, well, then it's not their best attack, so you still don't feel so bad. And if it's their optimal attack, well, you just had Spider-Man's ability. I just think that's it kind of sucks about him, and his deck is just bad. Like, yeah, you have the 3/6s that are good, but your defenses suck. You don't have any feints, so effect heavy based fighters will just destroy you. You don't have many other options than just maneuver and attack every single turn. And I think I'm just a bit too disappointed from the ability to actually give him a try again. And yeah, that's why he's so low. Annie. Annie Christmas. Now this is an interesting one. I think I'll actually put her here as well. Because Annie is like, she just feels weak once Charlie dies, in my opinion. I don't know, your opponent just focused on Charlie at the start of the game, so Annie herself doesn't really take any damage, and you have to attack your opponent, so they will get lower on HP, and once Charlie is dead, you don't get to use your ability because your opponent just kinda is lower than you most of the time. So that kind of sucks. And also, I feel like most of your attacks aren't really worth attacking with other than Lanyard. And then that also feels kind of bad. I don't know. I think it's just a bit of a design flaw maybe with Annie. Like the ability sounds really cool being the underdog and stuff, but since your opponent can play around that so easily, I don't really see her. Also, I don't like the idea of Mississippi Queen as a card. I think she'd rather have actually a bit more good versatiles or maybe some attack cards to put up pressure so you can actually work a bit more in the game. Because like being on 1 HP and your opponent not being able to do anything about that just feels kind of bad, to be honest. But yeah, I'm just not a big fan. It's so funny with DTA. I started with the opinion that Annie is cool, the rest sucks, and now it's Annie kind of sucks, and we'll get to the rest. Yeah, Bat will probably either go one of these two. Uh, no, I think he'll still be down here. Um, Bat for me is just She-Hulk 2.0. At least that's how I experienced him. Um, in all the irrelevant matchups on top tier that we play a lot, he just runs away the whole game, only goes in for Alpine, only reshuffles Alpine, so you're always playing Alpine, 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 Alpine. That's it. That's all he does. And it's so fucking annoying. I really don't like him. I've heard that if you play him against lower fighters like Alice or stuff, he actually becomes a bit more honest and actually plays the game a lot more. But since that rarely comes up in competitive, at least from my experience right now, I just want to ban him every single time to not have to mess with him. And yeah, maybe if I play him a bit more with my friend group over here and don't take it so serious, maybe he'll grow on me. I don't know. But I just don't like him at all. Next up, we have Jill. Um, Jill for me is just kinda like Yen. Jill for me is basically Yen 2.0. She has so many great cards, no real bad things. She's so versatile. She can do almost everything, just doesn't excel in anything. And yeah, Daisy is cool. Just sometimes it can be frustrating playing against Jill because her blocks are so incredibly good. Basically, Daisy has 4 or 5 value blocks, 3 4 values. Jill also has utility belt, which is kind of 4 value block. Then she can heal with tonic, and she can be so incredibly tanky that it can be frustrating, but I think she's still a really cool fighter. I like her really much, just like Yen. And yeah. Next up, Tesla. Tesla will go here. Tesla's just, I really love Tesla. Tesla is what, in my opinion, Beowulf should have been. Like managing your calls, thinking about what to spend what for. If you want to spend your calls on defense, then you don't really get to use them on offense, but then you maybe have only blank values and take a lot of damage and whatever, getting a crazy combo. And Tesla's just, it's so many decisions. It's so fun to play him and against him, thinking about when to pressure him to maybe make him use his coils and make him use them so optimally and stuff. I just think he's so much fun. And yeah, great. Great fighter. Now we'll get to the last two that were just newly released, and I definitely have a favorite out of these two. We'll talk about Tomoe. Tomoe also just grows on me every single time I play her. I started liking her in the first play, but wasn't really convinced on her play style that yet. But the more I play her, the more nuanced it gets, with positioning, your opponent having to leave her zone if you pressure them enough. The 7 being one of the coolest high value attacks in the game. Confront, how to trigger that, just getting the best value out of your ability. It's really fun playing as or against a Tomoe. and she just grows on me even more every single time I play as or against her, and yeah, great stuff. And then we'll get to Oda. Um, I would say there's a big difference between playing Oda alone against playing Oda in a team. Because like if you play Oda alone, I think he's kinda just on nice. He can be pretty fun. He's really aggressive. He has a lot of draw. The flanking stuff can be interesting for positioning stuff, but once your honor guard dies, you just feel sad because your deck completely sucks from that point on, and you can't do anything and you just wait until you die. But if you're playing in a 2v2, I think Oda actually also goes up there. There's so many ridiculous things you can do with Oda in 2v2s, like pairing him up with certain fighters. Robin, for example, only basically has 4 value blocks, and Highway Robbery becomes a 3. That's insane. And there's so many fun things you can do with him, but I think I will put him here because most of the time this is just my tier list for me playing if I want to play, and then I probably play one-on-one most of the time. So I'll put him there. But if you're playing with many others in a 2v2, Oda is great. So yeah, that's my tier list on how much I like the unmatched characters. Feel free to disagree in the comments. And still think about it, this is the only correct tier list. So yeah, we'll see ya.